What's what's good, fam? Everybody good? What's
Hey,
happening?
yo.
Let's do a check in. I don't know
Good.
what's happening on X, man. They've been acting up in terms of letting us stream and stuff. I don't know what's happening.
I know what's happening. Elon is on notice. He don't want us streaming there anymore.
Bro, you actually might be on to something, bro. Yeah, you actually might be on to something.
There's too much
So,
melanin in this
man,
conversation for him.
last we spoke, a lot of things that are happening in America. What is on y'all's minds? What's on y'all's hearts right now?
Oh man, I mean, there's a lot going on in the world right now. This week has seen so much, I guess, words and energy around, Kamala Harris making a run for the presidency, and so that is a very different plot space than we thought we were going to be this time last week. And so taking it one week at a time, but there's certainly a lot of energy around it, which is exciting.
Definitely a
Yeah.
lot of energy. It was
Definitely.
gloom and doom last week when we were talking. And now all of a sudden it's this burst of energy. I feel like it started with you had the Black women Zoom call, then you had the Black male Zoom call, then you had the white women Zoom call with over 150,000 people raised over $2 million, and now I just got a link for the white males for Kamala phone call, Zoom call that's about to happen, and you already know what's about to happen. It feels like '08. A lot of people are throwing this buzzword around, hopeful. Not saying hope, but saying hopeful. And so you're starting to see a lot of things. Steve, what are your thoughts?
Just shout out to the people who know when to hang it up and make room for other folks to be
That's
successful
facts.
and do the thing, right? I mean, we would be in a different place if the president decided that they didn't want to hang it up. And so shout out to those folks who know when it's time to let the next leader step up, who understand the importance of the moment. And so just deep appreciation, because it takes a unique individual to be able to have that type of introspection and say, it's not me. Right.
100%, bro. That right there is leadership. So
Yep.
it's twice. I feel like it's twice that this guy has came in. His legacy is intact, right? Because
Yeah.
when you look at him in the larger scheme of things, you're gonna say two things. You're gonna say three things. You're gonna say, first, they should have let him run in 16.
Mhm.
Second, you're gonna say that in 20 he came in with this mantra like, I'm gonna save democracy, or we're gonna save democracy, and it happened, right? And then when he didn't see a pathway forward in terms of this continuation of saving democracy, he stepped out of the way. He did it his way. He took a little bit more time than people wanted him to take, but he gracefully bowed out, and I love that. I love that
Now's
for
now's
Democrats.
not the time to argue about the process. He did it. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's fact. That's fact.
I just want to know, Ray, how are you getting all these invites? What email list do I have to get on to get every different demographic constituency group, the Zoom links? How are you getting those Zoom links, man?
How'd you get invited to the white
man.
male link?
I'm over 50,000 strong on social medias, baby. I'm connected. I'm tapped in. I'm tapped in. People like me. So, so Steve, letting you set this up, man, because I know you've been nerding out on this. Set up and let the people know what Project 25 is.
So Project 2025 is a work that was done by some conservative think tanks, the Heritage Foundation and some of their partners, to identify a set of priorities that they would like the next Republican conservative administration to focus on. It is the closest thing to a party platform that the Republicans have right now, since they don't technically have a platform. The platform right now is whatever Trip wants. That's our platform. But it's a roadmap from the Heritage Foundation for how what they'd like to see next in conservative politics. and policy.
Yeah, thanks for that, man. So eloquently put. Graham, we talked about it before, so this is kind of like part 2, and so we're gonna kind of dig in terms of
I have FOMO.
things.
I wasn't here last time, so I'm ready. I've been
Right.
stretching.
I totally understand. I understand the assignment. And so first up, man, we're gonna talk about special education and the Project 2025's take on special education. And so it says that Individuals with Disabilities Act, which provides 14.2 billion in federal money in education of school-age children with disabilities, should be mostly converted with no strings block grants to individual states. So what's y'all's initial take on that, humdinger? We'll start there.
I'll say that anytime you don't really care about something, but you want to make it look like you care about it, you make it a block grant. Block grant is the equivalent of saying, it's like saying, I think you should eat healthy, and I think it's important to eat healthy, but I'm not going to tell you what healthy looks like, so just go do your thing, right? Yeah. The idea that we would provide federal funding without, at a minimum, guidelines for important pieces of what's needed for students who are special needs, who need adaptive services, what that looks like, and minimum requirements for what good service looks like scares me. Given that they would leave that up to the states without any real strings or accountability for how those dollars are being spent. Anytime somebody gives somebody money without wanting to have any accountability and foresight in it, you should be nervous about it, particularly when it's tax money.
Yeah. G.
Yeah, I mean, the level, if you think about like IDEA and just like special education provisions from the 90s until now, and the leaps and bounds that students with special needs and their families have come in terms of the support they get in their schools, and like that, so much of that came because of federal and state mandates to do right by these students and families. And while I'm certain that there are families who feel dissatisfied by the delivery of services that they are receiving from their public schools, I also know that without any clear guidelines or direction for where they should be going and what they should be using those funds for, it's going to become an even larger pool of money that's really inefficiently used. And so I am just I'm surprised that this was even on the table, but maybe I shouldn't be.
Nah, you definitely shouldn't be surprised that it was on the table, bro. So my take on this one is that we just came out of a global pandemic. And during that global pandemic, you've seen a lot of educational disparities that were exposed. One of the things that was exposed was special education writ large. It sucks for special education students. And so now you're telling me that some of the worst performing states academically, like your Louisianas and your Mississippis, are now going to have access to money and are going to be able to burn through this money when they don't know their asses from their whatever that saying is. Anyway, I wouldn't be putting the lives of special education students, ENL students, and anybody that falls under that umbrella in terms of block grants. So Steve, I appreciate you eloquently laying that out in terms of what block grants mean. Okay, anything else y'all got?
Not on that one.
Do better. Do better, Heritage Foundation. Do better.
All right. Next up, we got school meals, man. So federal school meals program should be scaled back to ensure that only children from low-income families are receiving the benefit. The document says policy changes under the Obama administration have made it easier for entire schools or districts to provide free meals to students without families needing to submit individual eligibility paperwork. So I remember growing up, having to fill out the forms in order to determine who was a free lunch person, who was a reduced lunch person. I think reduced lunch in high school when I was coming up, you had to pay a quarter, but free lunch was free lunch. Yeah. But I feel like by removing all of that and just letting everybody eat, it removes the stigma of a person being a free lunch person or a person being a reduced lunch person. And so I don't know y'all's thoughts. What are y'all's thoughts?
Well, as somebody who has been for the last 7 years responsible for making sure that paperwork, whatever form it is, whether pre the when they switched to full eligibility, community eligibility programs, to based on a certain percentage of low income students in your school, kind of exempted you from having to do the individual paperwork. That paperwork is still annoying. It's so long and it's such a pain in the butt to actually put together. And so if they are proposing that we create systems of accountability and measurement that will ultimately maybe go against their vision for smaller government, because you're gonna have to create a whole nother office to just be the low income or free school lunch like police in states and cities, and I don't think that that's what they want to be spending their money for. But there's no way that this would lead to a more efficient distribution of funds. The money would just go to the accountability office, which is not what they want. So.
And there's a special place in hell for somebody who asks a family already experiencing the trauma of poverty to experience the additional trauma of having to record and raise your hand in triplicate that you are poor and need services, right? Like this is crazy to me. Like this is sort of multiplying traumas upon traumas to say, right? Forget, in addition to the stigma that you talked about, Ray, and the families who may feel uncomfortable raising their hand and therefore aren't getting services because they don't want to admit to the world, right, that they need this support. The idea that we would, make them constantly raise their hand and prove to us in a deep way that they are in need of these services, when we recognize that communities, with particularly the way schools work, the way that these communities tend to be like communities of low-income communities tend to be low-income communities, and therefore everyone in that community is really in need of services. Like the idea that you would make folks do this and continually raise their hand feels not just problematic, but really punitive.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Oh man, it's getting heavy. This is getting heavy, bro. This is getting real heavy for me because I remember being in the so shout out to my boy growing up. His name is Jeremiah Lopez. So quick story about Jeremiah Lopez. So his mom, she worked for social services in Covington, Louisiana, and so she had an idea of the folks that would qualify for free and reduced lunch or whatever, right? And so Jeremiah didn't drink milk. And so what Jeremiah would do is he would slide me his milks every day because like that meal, that lunch meal was the only meal that I had to get me through to the next day. And so shout out Jeremiah Lopez for seeing me. Right. But like school lunch is so important to marginalized communities. A lot of kids come in for that consistent meal every day. We don't want to acknowledge that because, then that would mean that we would be inhumane people at the fact that poor people have to like depend on school lunch. But bro, that's where we are in a lot of these communities. Like a lot of people send their kids to school because they know that they're going to eat. And then we have a food pantry to where we're sending kids home. Like if a kid says, "Oh, I don't have this or I don't have that," like of course we're not gonna we're gonna do what we got to do as a school community in order to coalesce around our students. I hope every school has a food pantry, and they're going above and beyond for these kids.
And I'd argue, look, I don't even like to talk to people when I'm hungry. Could you imagine trying to learn hungry, right? Like it's not just a function of, providing food where it's needed, but if that's supposed to be a productive learning environment, students aren't going to be able to learn if they're hungry, right? That just doesn't make any sense, right? They're more focused on their fundamental needs than they will be on what we want them to learn. And so this is also good. This makes good academic sense, right? It's not just good humanitarian sense. It's good academic sense.
Bro, it's like being at Lone Rock on pizza night. I'm angry, baby.
Shots fired. Where's my disclaimer? I don't want to lose my pizza.
I don't claim the Lone Rock pizza, but man, you are such a hater. God.
Own it. I own it.
Shout out to Reed Hastings and his pizza.
Craziness. All right. So privatization, and Graham, that hits us a lot because people misinterpret public charter schools all the time. And so for privatization, they got in place of a federal education department, the blueprint calls for widespread public education funding that goes directly to families as part of its overarching goal, advancing education freedoms. Hell no, not for this. I already know the direction that this is going here, and this is only going to benefit the wealthy. The way to fix schools in the United States is to make every school a good school. And so if you're pouring resources into every school, that means neighborhood schools, that means magnet schools, that means charter schools. Hell, that even means private schools that people can afford to send their kids to. If every school is a really good school, then we don't even have these problems.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of thing comes out of people feeling like they didn't get that wealthy people feeling like they're not getting enough benefit out of the system as it currently exists, and restructuring the entire department of services to benefit them. I think it's gross. I think it's really gross.
Appreciate that, sir. You may have a different take.
No, I have a similar take. I'm with you, but here's my thing. I would laugh about the irony of a party and a movement that is so deeply entrenched in this idea of the markets rule everything, to be able to want to do an income transfer from public dollars to a private institution feels antithetical to what it is to be a conservative capitalist at its very nature, right? It is quite the definition of difference between, right, that separation of public and private. And so it feels uncomfortable to me that we would be even exploring this idea of pushing the public dollars into private situations. And at the same time, it also feels uncomfortable to me that the great majority of those schools that they'd be doing it, that would benefit from this, are schools that are already receiving lots of money from wealthy families. And so this feels wrongheaded in a lot of different directions. I understand why people want this, but I think this is the type of thing that is, would it meet for their base more than anything else? It just feels like it's not about having an educated populace. It's about serving their base.
Yeah, so, you just got to look at Arizona's educational outcomes to see how good it's working.
Woo!
Yeah, Arizona's not doing too bad.
Yeah, I mean, but this is not solving. This is
not
they're the only state in the country that has something like this. If you look at the results and you say, if they're saying that this is going to lead to better, stronger results, stronger public schools, like, it hasn't yet. But what it has done is enriched wealthy families who want to pull their kids out of public institutions and send them to private schools.
Okay, so light segue here. So you got your boy the Donald that is coming at Kamala, and part of his defense is saying that she failed the bar. Like, bro, do you understand how hard the California bar is? It is the second most difficult bar in the country, with about 34% pass rate the first time you take the damn bar. The only harder bar is Alabama right now, and I think that Alabama's bar is harder because of people can't read in Alabama. But that's just my take.
I think the irony of a person who was given hundreds of millions of dollars by his family and then lost it all and had to rebuild it, right? From a failure perspective, the irony of that is not lost on me, right? The fact that someone who has failed that momentously is now sitting around, turning around, being like, "Oh, you failed the bar." I want to see him take the bar.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Just take the bar. Take a series 6. Do something that doesn't involve you having your entitlement and you getting all that money you got from Fred. Like, I just don't understand, bro. And then so
you know who else will probably fail the bar? everybody who went to Trump University.
100%, bro. And so, listen, this billing as the prosecutor versus the felon is perfect. Yo, that is the perfect bill. It's the perfect billing because he is a 34-time convicted felon, and so people can gloss over that all they want. But in a court of law, he was convicted 34 counts of felonious behaviors. And so you can gloss over that all you want. You can say, oh no, the Supreme Court this or whatever. But if that was a black person that had gotten convicted, or a Latino person that had got convicted on 34 counts of whatever it is he got convicted of, you wouldn't be seeing him right now.
Yeah. Not even close.
Yeah. And so what did y'all take on this whole she's a DEI she's a DEI she's gonna be a DEI president? Like, I know that's got to make y'all feel some kind of way. I'm feeling a way.
Yo, who's saying that? Who are these people?
Bro, you know who these people are.
Bring them on the show.
You know who these people are.
But so when you hear that, like when you hear elected officials that are like, oh, she's a DEI, so when I think of DEI, I think comparing apples to apples, right? And so no one that I've heard say that she is a DEI whatever is a person that compares if you would compare them apples to apples. So if you compare them apples to Kamala, it would be no comparison, right? And so I don't understand these people.
Yeah.
So where y'all at on
it? Yeah, you know what's interesting here is we had a conversation one time. I don't know if it was live or it was on the side, but I feel like certain folks have adopted this idea of like this person, it's all about DEI or CRT, and they're using those words interchangeably for other words that they're not allowed to say publicly. Right? Yes, and so, like, to me, this is the dog whistle to the base. They know they can't, up and use the N-word. They know they can't up and say the things that they want to say. And so they use other words, right? They say DE&I candidate. This is all CRT agenda. This is woke America, right? I think this is right. This is that. And I think what they mean when they say these things is that she somehow did not earn her place at the table. She is not a qualified person to be running for president. We're talking about a U.S. senator. We're talking about a former prosecutor. We're talking about the current vice president of the United States. And I think this is a failing message to the general public, to the majority of the folks that they're trying to persuade, right? The swing voters, if you will, to talk about this, because it is at a minimum asinine, at worst, it is derogatory to say that somebody with that resume is not prepared to take on the challenges of that office.
Yeah. Sir?
I don't know if I have anything to add to that. I mean, goodness.
Yo, he's been hot.
Yeah, it came in hot, bro. I mean, the thing that is like so frustrating about all of it is that it also, like, there could be theoretically like a case, not in this case, but theoretically a case to be made that like representation is not sufficient to give inspiration or confidence that somebody will be able to do a job. Just because they check a box doesn't mean that they are qualified to do the whole job. And that's a reasonable argument to be made somewhere else. But in this case, like throwing that term, like they're very clear that they don't even want to have that conversation. They're not introducing any kind of nuance or perspective into the debate. They're just trying to be mean and divisive and speak to the base. And I'm not trying to have that. Yeah,
bro. I'm usually inward in terms of like just my political ideologies. I tend to lean towards the conservative side, but now I find myself outwardly rooting for this woman because, again, I haven't felt this way since. Well, I felt this way during the first Bush administration. W was exciting for me. I tell y'all that those were some of the best tax years of my life, right there. So when Kanye was like, Bush you don't love black people, I was like, shit, he loved me.
Oh my God.
There's my disclaimer.
Man, but yeah, in 08, man, when you started to feel it, you really started to feel it. It's like, yo, you're like, damn, this is about to happen. Like, this is wow. Like the momentum, it just came in the shift or whatever. And like, so I feel like this is a greater shift. Like the feeling behind this is a little bit more, because you're starting to see white folks early on galvanized behind the movement. Whereas I feel like it was more so along the lines of, well, we got to accept this because this is going to happen kind of thing in 08. But this is different, man. This is a different feeling.
Yeah, and I don't say this to, like, I'm not passing a judgment on the next thing I say, so I don't think this is good or bad. I think it's good in some cases and bad in some cases. But I also think the movement, the conservative movement, has also taken on a heavier religious overtone and a Christian overtone than it has in a really long time. That's always been a part of the Republican base, right? But we are now leaning more heavily. If you read big pieces of the Project 2024, right, it is about sort of like, protecting the family and upholding traditional family structures and family views, right? And so like there's this religious undertone that is both connected to their ideology and also, I think, judgmental in its approach, right? And I think sits through a lot of this stuff. And so it is both this combination of more blatant sort of push against diversity, more blatant push against Black and brown communities, and these religious overtones to sort of justify that movement in something greater than just hate. And I think those things combined feels tough.
So that brings us here. This whole data collection piece, bro. So it says the National Assessment of Educational Progress, known as the Nation's Report Card, should release student performance data based on family structure. Bro, based off of family structure. It's everything that you just said, right? Like, who defines family structure? And so, in addition to existing categories such as race and socioeconomic status, well, I'm glad they're not trying to take that out. Project 2025 argues family structure, the document says, is one of the most important, if not most important, factors influencing student educational achievement and attainment. That is wild. And then it goes on to say, the document goes on to endorse natural family structure of a heterosexual two-parent household, because all children have the right to be raised by the men and women who conceive them. Bro, that's wild.
Well, they're saying the quiet part out loud.
You said what?
They're saying the quiet part out loud.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
At least from that perspective, it's like, all right, we know exactly where their cards are, where their perspective is. They're not trying to hide behind anything.
Yeah, but go ahead, Steve.
I said, and if I was a more dubious reading of this too, says that they are this language tries to go after, some of the communities that have traditionally been their sort of the villains in their story, right? The same-sex families, same-sex parents, the non-traditional families, and like sort of that, they love to talk about the missing Black males in families, right? And so this is like that's what this feels like to me. This is like them being able to sort of bring up the quote-unquote boogeyman in the story that allows them to sell a narrative.
Right. And then, and if this data collection is now tied to any kind of accountability measures, potential funding, student performance or improvement based on family structure, then that creates a whole nother cascade of punishments for potential punishments for schools and the communities that they serve.
Bro, it's wild out here in these streets, man.
Yeah, man.
It's wild out here in these streets, man. And so I didn't mean for this to be so heavy today, but like, dealing dealing with the things that we're dealing with, man, it's definitely going to require us to be consistent and to make sure that we are telling the truth to folks that are listening to us. So I appreciate you guys and y'all's approach. So final thoughts, Steve, starting with you.
Listen, read and ask questions. My thing to everyone: these materials are out there. Project 2025 is out there. You get to read it and make your own decisions. My intent here is not to sway you in a belief system in either way, in one way or other, but to bring information and help you make the most informed decision you can make as you decide who you want to support and whose educational policy you want to support. Because for me, that is my focus and my reason for being.
Yes, sir. Grant.
The Olympics are coming up. The opening ceremony is this evening. The Olympics, the Olympic Committee, the whole system is very corrupt, messed up geopolitical manifestation of the power structures that exist in our world. But like, watch the sprinting, root for Jamaica, and but like hold it with a grain of salt because the whole thing is kind of messed up.
And my Puerto Rico basketball team is killing it too.
Bro, Jamaica ain't got a shot hell.
Yo, no, man. Sharika Jackson is about to dust everybody on that 100 years.
Okay, sir. Whatever.
Okay.
All right. So here in my hand, I hold the blueprint to increasing parent engagement, authored by moi.
What?
Let's go.
The forward is by Sarah Carpenter, the executive director of the Memphis Lift down in Memphis, Tennessee. And so you about to be seeing more of this. It's actually out on Kindle right now. So go pull up, download, and give some comments on it or whatever. The hard copy is coming out. And so hopefully I'll be at a school near you, giving a presentation or a book talk on increasing parent engagement.
So,
right.
Look, there is zero shame in my game. Where's my free signed copy?
Yo, I got you. Monday. Well, I don't know if they're gonna be here by Monday, but
well, you got at least one.
Lone Rock Pizza, and parent engagement.
Yeah.
Folks, we'll see you next week. Maybe.
Maybe.